Welcome to the series of How to Begin a Widow's Ministry. My name is Marlene Kraft. I am a U.S. missionary and chaplain to widows. You may be thinking, I don't understand about widows and what they go through. Well, the good news is you don't have to worry about that. If you have a heart to minister to widows, that's what's important. Because the important part about widows is through this ministry, you are giving them an opportunity to get together because they can understand each other and they need to connect with one another. So thank you so much for taking the time to go and to learn how to begin a widow's ministry in your church. So we want to begin it by, I have included some outlines and I have tried to do it in a KISS way by keeping it simple. So I have laid it out almost in a check mark fashion, but we're going to go through a few things before we get into the actual outline because there's some basic things you want to lay the foundation with. And of course, the very first one is prayer. As in any ministry, you want to pray and hear the Lord's voice and get His direction and His timing for things. I've tried to push the doors with God before, and He has told me, wait, it's not the time. But the Lord will open up the right time for it, and He will bring the right people around you. So be assured the Lord is on your side as you step out and begin this ministry. So beside prayer, you do want to keep in contact with your authority, with the pastor or whoever is overseeing your area of ministry with the widows. You want to let them know what's going on. Possibly you want to present your ideas before them, but always keep in communication. God always works through the branches of authority. So you want to stay stepping in line with that. Third is budget and finances. Well, it's good news. You don't have to have a lot of money to begin a widow's ministry. You don't have to have anything. Many widows' ministries are begun with no money, and later on the church sees the importance of it and then adds it to their yearly budget. And next is the way that you want to begin a widow's ministry is with a kickoff event. This gives you the opportunity to invite widows from your community, from your church, from other churches, and to bring them all together. So that's what we're going to be talking about. So you might want to pull out that handout, and we're going to go ahead and go through it. So you want to begin with a kickoff event. And one of the best ways to do this is by having either a banquet, a luncheon, or a tea. And you might say, well, what's the difference between a banquet and a luncheon? A banquet is where you are actually serving the widows. A luncheon can be more like they're coming through a line. Or else you can do a simple tea, where it's just coffee, tea, cookies, pastries, something as simple as that. But the heart behind it is getting the widows together, connect them, to show them God's love and to bless them and let them know that they are not forgotten. Many widows feel like they've fallen between the cracks in the community, in the church, in their family, and many of them feel alone. So this is a beautiful opportunity to share with them the Lord's love. We're going to show you how to plan out the event. We're going to give you some suggestions for the event. And then also, I do want you to keep in mind that I'm going to lay out a lot of different ideas that you can do. But feel free to know that you can pick and choose. Maybe the first time you do the widow's banquet, you want to keep it maybe a little bit simpler. But what I've had many churches do is they decide to do it yearly, and then each year they'll add to it and make it a little bit grander. So don't feel overwhelmed by all that I'm telling you. These are ideas. So you can pick and choose whatever fits best with your community, with your church, okay? All right, let's go ahead and get started with the outline. So planning the kickoff event, after you've decided if you want it to be a banquet, luncheon, tea, then you need to decide on a location. You can do it in the church. I just did a widow's luncheon, a widow's banquet at a community center. Sometimes getting it off-site from a church is a really nice idea because some widows may not want to walk through church doors, and especially if it's not their church. So doing it in a in an off-site place many times is a good idea, but whatever works out best for you and your church and your committee. So you want to choose possible events and the time of the event. I would suggest that you maybe go for early or late morning, around lunch, afternoon. Many of us widows, because I became a widow suddenly 10 years ago, and I'm not too cool on driving at night. And so if you can keep it during the daylight times, it's so much better for the widow. So keep that in mind. And then, of course, you want to check with the church. If your event's going to be at the church, make sure that you get things approved on the calendar, going through those lines of authority, getting everything checked in place. And insofar as food, you want to plan your menu. You want to find out who's going to cook, the cost of it. And your banquet is probably going to be your most expensive thing. But then again, you can do a luncheon where people in the church can bring food. Because one of the beautiful parts of doing this kickoff banquet for the widows is that you want to involve as much of the church as possible. Because God did not say, pastors, go and minister and take care of the widows. No. He said pure and genuine religion, which includes all of us, means that he wants all of us to participate. And so as we go through this, you'll find that there are things that all ages can join in and be a part of. So you want to include the church. And so you could even do something that different people make different things, even if it's as simple as chicken salad, croissant, fruit, and a dessert. So it doesn't have to be extravagant, just so you go ahead and plan it and keep it so it'll be a blessing to the widow. Next, you want to choose if you want to have a speaker, a singer. You want to plan out your program, okay? You might want to include some games, and we'll talk about that in a little while. And then plan on the cost of things, accommodations if you have a speaker coming in, a sound system, podium, all these things. And see, I've kind of made it like a checkoff list to where you can kind of go through it and go, okay, we've got that covered, we've got that covered. I'm trying to keep it simple and easy for you. So that's the way I've laid it out. Next, you want to consider decorations. You might want to choose a theme. You want to make it special for the widows. So when they walk in, they're like, oh, they did this for me? It makes them feel so special. I love to hear widows as they walk into some of these banquets and they're like, oh, this is so beautiful. And it doesn't necessarily take a lot of work. But what's cool also is that you can involve those who are gifted in decorating. You don't have to do it all yourself. It's wonderful to gather the church around. You can have a team who is working with you, and each person can be assigned a specific area. So you do want to decorate it. And something that's very important is to have name tags. Now, if you, we'll be talking about having widows pre-register, but then if you want to, as they come in the door, you can have, it's best to have a volunteer in a big, thick magic marker, not a pen, but a magic marker, write their first name on their name tag. Because what I've discovered is now that I'm older, I can't necessarily read name tags that are written in a pen. And it's frustrating. I want to know the person's name. And some people who walk through the door to come to the banquet may not know how to print really well. Okay? So having a volunteer to be able to do that is a great idea. But name tags, very important. So you do want to make sure that you publicize the event. A lot of churches like to put it on their church sign, and then with the internet, getting it out on social media, very important. Because many times it's not just widows who will see it, but it is their kids and their grandkids. A son may see it and say, hey, Mom, they're going to have a widow's banquet over at this church or over at this center. Would you like to go to it? Well, I didn't hear about it. But the daughter, the son, the grandson heard about it and told the widow about it. So social media, great way to get the word out. I have included some different things you want to make sure that you have on the flyer. Part of that is including if you want to supply transportation for them. There's some widows who don't have cars, who have to use buses and things like that to get around. So possibly picking them up would be a great blessing. And insofar as who would be coming to the banquet, I would suggest you keep it to women. Because a lot of times if you bring in widowers into a banquet, suddenly the widows get very uptight and they feel like there's a vulture around trying to grab them. And they can't relax and enjoy themselves. Now, if you do have a lot of widowers in your area or in your church, I would suggest the men's ministry have a special time for them to get together and take time to minister to them. Widowers need help just like widows do. So that's just kind of my feelings on it. And when it comes to divorcees and that sort of thing, that's a choice that you have to make. From the voice of widows, what I have heard from widows is it's not quite the same. Though we both go through the loss of different things, divorcees didn't have a choice. Divorcees had a choice in, getting the divorce. Sometimes a woman didn't have the choice, but when you become a widow, it was not your choice. So there are some definite differences there, but you pray, you decide that on your own. So next, insofar as news releases, this is a great idea. You might want to contact your newspaper. Let them know what you're doing, because you probably haven't heard of many people doing widows' banquets or doing things for widows, because it's not happening a lot out there. So newspapers, I have found, love to hear about when churches do this, and they might even come and do a story, and put it in the paper, and then possibly you can put out there the date of your first widows meeting after that. So a great way for just free publication and getting the word out there. So also you can do personalized invitations if you want to. Some churches kind of want to send it out to their widows, and if you want to send it out to churches in the area, once you make up your flyer, that is a great idea. And then widows can sign up. It's really good to be able to get a number count. So they need to be able to sign up either through a phone call to where they can tell someone they're coming, RSVP that way, or else online through your website. But keep in mind, a lot of widows don't necessarily have that ability. So you kind of have to think both ways. But I do want to share with you just an encouraging word. I say encouraging. I want you to keep in mind that what I have learned about widows is that a lot of times, without having a husband at home, we can tend to fly by the seat of our pants. And if we wake up one morning and, yes, we said we were coming to this banquet or this luncheon, but I don't feel like it today, they won't come. So, but it's best to get a number count, but don't be disappointed. Don't be disappointed. I had one church that the first year they had a commitment of almost 20 people, and 9 people showed up. The next year, 35 people showed up. So be encouraged. People are not used to this, and sometimes widows are a little bit hesitant, but after your first widow's banquet, word gets out about how special they felt, how wonderful it was, and if you choose to have them yearly, they will grow. I know there was one in Alabama that started with about 30 people. They've now grown to close to 100 after several years. So widows loved to be remembered and cherished and to feel loved, as we all do, as we all do. So the next point is volunteers. And this is great because, as I had mentioned earlier, you can use all kinds of volunteers. Greeters. You want to be real careful that, you want greeters. For some reason, doors and churches and restaurants believe that you have to have heavy doors to enter, And a lot of times, that is a lot of work for widows to be able to open a door. So have someone at the door. You can have people in the parking lot. But have people who love to hug and just have a great ability to greet people and make them feel happy, and possibly huggers. Once we get past all this COVID stuff, we'll be able to hug again. And we all look forward to that. So you want to have very loving greeters. Servers are wonderful because you can use anyone from, deacons, men's ministry, teenagers. I had one church that used the scouts of the town to serve the widows. Youth can help with that. So this is definitely an all-church event where everyone can participate. Valet parking is an option. I tell you what, you can make a widow feel really special when they pull up and say, "Ma'am, can we park your car?" Some of us kind of go into shock. But it helps them to feel loved and special. So, but like I said, you don't have to do all of this. You can add things on little at a time. These are just ideas. Photographer, it's wonderful to have a photographer. Sound person. Today I've got Andrew helping me. Thumbs up, Andrew. Couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much. So you want to make sure you have that in place. Also, your cleanup crew. Please make sure you have a cleanup crew. All right? Otherwise, everyone's going to be leaving, and you're going to be stuck cleaning up a banquet of 30 people. You don't want that. So assign people. Make sure you have people there to help clean up. And so you also do want to plan food for them, whether you want to bring in pizzas or whether you want to include the banquet food for them, whichever you want to do, but kind of plan to feed them and take care of them. Next is door prizes. Something that we widows really miss is being blessed by gifts from our husband or flowers. I remember my husband he knew to just bring me one rose. That's all I needed. Don't bring me a dozen or I'm going to give away 11 of them. One rose. So flowers and gifts, it's something that really blesses the widow. So I want to encourage you to really do something along these lines. It doesn't have to be grand, but door prizes are fun. And I'll tell you what, there is Thomasville, Alabama. Walter and Patty, Jeff and Patty Walters have done a fantastic job of getting the entire town involved. They will end up with like over 300 door prizes because they go out and they go into the town telling the community what they're doing, and the community just grabbed a hold of it and said, yes, we want to bless the widows. And so they were giving free car washes and haircuts and food and just wonderful ways. Businesses love the idea of blessing the widows. There's not really many people out there doing that. So, get your person who's really, really outgoing to go and ask for those donations. And so door prizes, wonderful way. If nothing else, you can get them a little trinket and set it on the table. Just a little something to let them know that they are loved, that they are remembered, and that they are important. So there's some different ideas with that. So now during the event, I want to give you some ideas for during the event. Something that's going to be real important is for you to get the information for the widows. I have included a couple different attachments beside this outline. There are going to be 2 different widows information sheets. One will be for banquets, to where there's actually two per page, and you can cut it in half, and you can put it at each one of the place settings, because in this way you can go ahead and get the widow's information and address, email, phone number, all of that, so you can kind of contact her, know when the birthday is, when the husband passed away, all of that, and be able to have that for your files. Then there is another widow's information sheet, which is for the meetings, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But if you'll go ahead and have the banquet widow's information sheet on the table and encourage everyone to fill it out, because you can use that for door prizes. Say, get those filled out because that's going to help us in giving out the door prizes. Okay, sure, yeah, I want a door prize. And so they'll go ahead and fill it out. Now, some people will do that, but yet they'll go ahead and they'll give out tickets. There's something about being able to call out a number. 8477 is the winner, So you can do it either way, but you definitely want to get their information. Don't let them leave without it. I've had a couple churches that will go ahead and put blank envelopes on the table and have them fill out their name and address to where they can get an invitation to the either to next year's banquet or else to the first widows meeting. So that's another option. But definitely get their information so you will have it. Something else you want to do is possibly play some games. You want to kind of, in the beginning, if you can get them talking around the table, maybe as they're arriving, say, okay, as y'all are sitting around the table, go ahead and share with each other your favorite month of the year and why it is, or your favorite season, or your favorite color and why. So get them talking with one another, because we're in the midst of beginning to connect them. So this is a great time to do it. And then also, towards the beginning, you might even want to do a fun game. Now, I want to emphasize, keep it simple. I've been to some different parties, and they have you unscramble these long words, and I'm like, my brain doesn't comprehend all that, you know? So keep it a little bit simple. Feel free to get in contact with me. I'll give you that information at the end. Well, actually, I can give it to you now and at the end. All you have to do is go to widowslink.org and fill out contact information, and I can help with some different ideas with that, okay? So any way I can be a help, that's what I'm here for. So also then, when it comes to a speaker, you can do things like a comedian to bring someone fun in. Laughter is so good for the soul, and we know that it's like a medicine. The Bible talks about it being a medicine. So bringing in a comedian, a great idea. A widow who has a very special testimony, make sure she's a good speaker also. You don't want them kind of falling asleep, okay? You could have someone maybe do some funny stories, funny sayings. One church up in northern Indiana, they bring in a band. Actually, it's a preacher, and I think his board members or family or something. And he does all the songs from the 50s and 60s and probably the 40s. And the ladies get up and they dance for an hour and a half. They had the best time in all the world. And that's what this is about, connecting them, giving them a great time together. So be creative. You don't have to stay within the box, okay? Very good. We talked about the gift or the flowers, doing the tickets. Just the gift or the flower helps them just know that they're remembered and they're loved. Pictures, if you want, you can set up a picture-taking area. You can have little things to put in front of their face or hats or anything like that. Or, you know, some of them will dress up. In the notes you'll see earlier that if you want to put on the flyers that it is relaxed wear. How did I put that in the notes? It's just casual. Just casual. Some, it being called a banquet, some might want to dress up. If they dress up, fine. If they come casual and in their pants, fine. It doesn't matter. But to be able to have a picture area for them, one church even took their pictures, the photographer took their pictures, went to Walmart, got them all developed, and brought them back to the church before the banquet was over, and then laid them out for the widows to pick up as they left the church. So, you know, just another idea, not something you have to do. Just an idea. So as they're leaving the banquet, you again want to make sure you're hugging on them, loving on them. Let them know how much you thank them for coming. And, you know, just letting them know that this was all about them. I've heard several times widows say, wow, I feel so special. I feel like a queen. And that's what we want. We want to bless the widows. So for this first session, I've kind of given you an idea of what the banquet can look like and given you some different ideas for it. So I hope you'll be able to use this as a way to begin and to kick off things. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to go to widowslink.org and go to contact, and send me an email, and I will be more than glad to help in any way that I can. Everything I'm sharing with you right now is going to be part of a program I am writing that will help to equip the church, and it will be the entire program of how to begin a widow's ministry. But I'm trying to give you a good synopsis of it. In our second session, we're going to be talking about starting regular meetings with the widows. You don't have to have a banquet to get things kicked off. A banquet is just a great, grand way just to be able to announce to the community and other churches that you are focusing in to bless widows. But you don't have to do that. You can go ahead and begin with the meeting. So if that's your desire, session 2 will work perfect for you. But then also, after you do the widow's banquet, and I don't think I mentioned this, one of the things that you do want to have on the table is you want to plan your very first meeting. Because then if you have it planned for maybe a month later or 2 or 3 weeks later, you can put together an announcement of the upcoming first widow's meeting. And you can name it, you can give them all that information, maybe on a half or a quarter sheet of paper, and put that at their place setting at the banquet. And they can take it home, put it on their refrigerator, and they can be reminded, because we need to be reminded. The older I get, the more I need to be reminded. So having that all prepared, letting them know when that first meeting is wonderful, because they can look forward to being able to get together with other widows again. So thank you so much. I do hope that you'll join us for session 2, because that's the real key, beginning the widow's ministry in your church insofar as regular meetings. So thank you so much. The Lord bless you, and thank you for all that you do. Know that the Lord is with you as you step out to do this ministry.